right. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to our second Spiritual and Psychic Sasquatch Conference. I'm really happy and grateful to be here. It's a great honor and pleasure and blessing once again this year. It's been, the last month for me has been pretty much of a challenging obstacle course with all kinds of delays and problems popping up all the time to test my faith to make it here. And finally the elders, our guides, they organized everything. So here we are. Before I start, I will give thanks to all the powers and beings who have made this event possible, who have brought us here from the four directions. Give thanks to the Great Spirit, the one consciousness in all and all in one. And to this Mother Earth we walk upon, this beautiful Mother that blesses us with so many medicines and teachings. And to this specific land here where we are, to the people who were here before us, the First Nations who have kept this land nice and sacred for future generations. And to everybody who is here now, my deepest thanks. It is really great joy to be again with this international spiritual family this year. And for the future generations, we will leave good tracks for them and good teachings and understandings so they can live a good life. And to all the other living beings, the stone people, the standing people, the trees, plants, the animals who swim and fly, walk on many legs, 4 legs. We also give thanks for all their medicines and teachings. And we also give thanks to all the 2-legged people, us humans, but also our relatives, our elder Sasquatch, and the star people who are part of this great cosmic journey we're on. So last year I had prepared about 30 pages of notes, and we barely made it to page 4. So I said last time that would be, this information will be the topic for the next book, which I started writing after a conference in October until January, and which was just published recently. And I would really like to give special thanks to Kiwani and Kelly for putting up this whole event together, for publishing my 2 books, for the wonderful artwork and graphics and that were provided by different artists as well. And for all the readers, all the people who show interest and who make this book possible. Without you, wouldn't be out there. And of course, to our elders, to whom we should give the credit for these teachings. So I'll start by, I see like 3 parts in this speech. I'll start by introducing a little bit of my experience with Sasquatch. I know some of their stories, some of you might have heard or read before. so I'll just cover the main things. Then we'll go on the slideshow. And the third part will be about the last book and interdimensionality. So, well, I'll try to be brief about myself. The first native legends that I heard in my life at 8-year-old was the legend of Babalu, as Sasquatch is called in Maine by the tribes there. I just heard of a hairy forest giant, and that can scream loud and is the keeper of the earth. At that point, it already resonated with me. We didn't even know about the name Sasquatch back then. The Patterson footage came out a few years later. Then again, I was 11 when I saw it, and I realized these beings are out there. I felt a very strong connection. So, anyways, around my late teenage, I started on my pilgrimage to seek spiritual knowledge and teachings from elders of many tribes, as well as non-native elders, and started taking part in ceremonies, and so I became early enough familiar with paranormal phenomena, spirit manifestations and signs and miracles, and these experiences have been the guidance of my life. When I really started communicating openly with Sasquatch, which was 2 years ago, I say they upgraded me, because all this spiritual walk I had done had basically prepared me to work with them on higher levels. My first conscious memory of Sasquatch encounter was in April '83. It was a few months after I took my first vision quest in BC and met my first spirit guide. So I knew about spirits and non-physical beings. So when I was there in Petrified Forest, I spent a night on a vision quest, and I saw Sasquatch walk from behind the dune and sat about 100 feet from me. And I could see clearly all the being, but it was like a hologram. I could see through almost, like a astral projection. And we interacted, and he animated for me 3D images of when their people were walking with the dinosaurs. So back then, I didn't have any understanding of what it meant, what happened really. I interpreted this experience as a vision, that a spirit had come to teach me something, because I didn't know anything about interdimensionality. So years passed, and I had several other anecdotal stories, I guess, where I heard my first Sasquatch call in Northern California in '86, fall '86, which definitely proved to me that they are physical. They can come in the physical world. They are real beings. And I started receiving telepathic communication and being shown pages of the Akashic records about a long past history of humanity and our planet before us. Back in those years, around 86, and I didn't really know where it was coming from. I was just asked back then already to transcribe some things, but it was all it was hard. It was all bits and pieces stuck together. It was not making any coherent thread. So that was my first beginning of transcribing the Akashic records. So then I'll go fast forward in time. In 2003, I was with my friend Patrick, who I came down here with, but I don't see him now. And we were on Vancouver Island, coming out of a ceremony with native elders on the west side after a very strong historic storm. And right in the middle of the rainforest, about 30 miles from the first house, we turned a curve and there was a Sasquatch standing there, fully materialized. And he looked at us and we froze. We completely paralyzed for a minute. We couldn't react, just like he sent us like a psychic energy to freeze us. And the dog with us turned mad, and he just stepped out and walked in the wood. And that experience taught me that first we were two witnesses, so we saw the same thing. And what we felt and experienced was this strong psychic energy that was kind of hypnotizing us. So I knew from that day that Sasquatch not only exist, but they are not an animal, and they are not just primitive people. They are very strong psychic beings. So it went on, and it was on my 50th summer, 3 years ago, that I finally ended up visiting the land of my native ancestors in northern Saskatchewan. And it was like the missing link of our genealogical tree, because I had done my family tree and we could go very far in the past in many branches, but our native roots were kind of a mystery. So I got there, and by a series of signs and guidance, I got to find the grave of my great-great-grandfather, whose name was Jacob Beads. And I connected with some of my third-degree Cree cousins. They are full-blooded Cree. And talking with them, I had found in the archives an old gazette of the 18-something, that story about my great-great-grandfather and his twin brother, where they were found around the age of 8 in the wilderness of the Northwest Territories. They were wearing rawhide, living in a hut of branch, eating roots and berries and bugs, and they were not talking any human language. They were found and adopted by some Cree trappers who rose them in Saskatchewan. And when I asked my cousin about this story, she said, well, we have Sasquatch in the family. So this was a very great revelation for me to learn that my great-great-grandfather was half Sasquatch. So I'm 1/32nd. And it probably triggered some interest, deeper interest and curiosity about Sasquatch and wanting to find who they are. So I moved to BC, British Columbia, and started searching. And of course, most of you must know that the internet has a lot of information, but a lot of disinformation as well. A lot of fake stories and misunderstanding about Sasquatch. So it was hard to find some really valid information that resonated. The best sources I found, still to this day, are the native traditions, because most native tribes of North America had a name for Sasquatch. They had stories, they had interaction, and they also have, especially in the north and northwest, there's a lot of people, native tribes, who claim lineage from the Sasquatch, and they are proud of it. Right here on the Spokane and Colville Reservation, there are people who are first or second generation Sasquatch hybrid. There's a man that Tom knows, they call him the son of Sasquatch. So it's been common knowledge among native tribes that our Western society has yet to relearn. And so when I started doing a lot of intensive research and being really curious about meeting them, knowing them, who they were, they started coming to me. That's when I had all kind of manifestations happening that at that time I didn't quite understand. For instance, I could hear a whisper next to my ear. It's like, what is that, you know? And a couple of times, the heavy footsteps on the roof of this school board I was living in that were shaking the bus. But nobody couldn't see anything. And things like that kept happening, and I was talking to my friend, and I don't know, maybe I'm turning crazy, but these things happen around me, and I feel no fear or no threat, but it's almost overwhelming. It's really impressive. That one night, I heard footsteps come, and I saw this big shadow. It was a very dark night of a new moon, and that being with that Sasquatch came and stood right across the window from me, 6 foot away. And at that point, I was still not ready to believe it was possible. I think, well, if you want to see a Sasquatch, you have to go deep in the wilderness. They wouldn't come and meet me in the orchard where I was living. So they call that cognitive dissonance. When your mind cannot explain what you experience, it's easier to deny it, and it's more comfortable because you don't have to face the new understanding it brings. So basically, I kind of said, no, that's not happening. And he just said, I'll come back when you're ready. And I walked away, and I walked outside right away, and I said, did I just see this? And he turned around and called back. So those things started happening to me before I really understood who the Sasquatch were. And it took a good year of this kind of phenomenon that I could share only with a handful of good spiritual friends, because I was seeking answers, and I knew I couldn't find answers just everywhere about it. So after a year, I said, well, that's it. I'm going out to meet them. I was at that point where I was ready, and whatever happens, happen. So I went to Vancouver Island on the western side. Vancouver Island, for those who haven't heard, it's the highest concentration of Sasquatch sightings reported. It's a very strong Sasquatch population there. And the northern part of the island is one of the largest, deepest cave network in the world, which has the island nicknamed the Island of Caves. So there I went on the Vancouver Island, and the first day I found tracks. My first tracks, so I was very happy. It was a good start. Then I spent 10 days walking around and looking and waiting. So after 10 days, I got the guidance to do a ceremony. So I took out my bundle and played some drums and chanted and played my flute, my Hopi flute, and offered smudge and offerings and calling on the good spirits. So that's that same night that Camus came to me. I'll skip the details because I described in my book these encounters. But he came, sat behind my tent, and right away he started teaching me. And people sometimes ask questions about telepathy, how it happens. There must be a lot of different ways. For me, it's almost like it's the emotional intelligence. It's the same way we can communicate without words with animals. But these beings, like the Sasquatch of a higher consciousness, they can transmit information, download in your soul if you're ready to accept it, if you want to take it. And it's, to explain in technical terms, it's like a DVD with a file, movies, or a lot of information on it. Information is such that it's beyond space and time. So the file is still dormant until you read it, basically. So that's how I compare, how I describe an information download. They put it all inside of your consciousness, and then it's up to you to read it when you're ready. You can read it out loud, and you can as well write it. So, in my second book, just came out, I describe a few of the experiences that happened in the last months after the last conference. So I won't go too much in detail with it. All I can say is that the walking with the elders is a wonderful blessing and experience. And they have been giving signs, and I can't talk for myself, but I know many other people live these things, have the same experiences. They give us signs, and they manifest in different ways, and each time it's a new teaching that brings new understanding. So it's a growth, it's a continuous growth that we always move higher or into higher consciousness when we follow those teachings. Well, maybe that last little anecdote that happened to me on my birthday this summer, when I was wondering where I would spend my birthday this year, and I opened the map of BC where I was, and the first name I saw was Sasquatch Park, Sasquatch Provincial Park, near Harrison Hot Spring, which is called the Sasquatch capital of the world. It's a very, very strong team there. They have the Sasquatch Days once a year since 1948, I believe. It's a native initiative. The different tribes who know about Sasquatch started this event. So I found myself in that provincial park on a pretty crowded, small campground with kids playing around and screaming, and at night people getting drunk and starting to talk loud and argue. And so I was starting to wonder why they asked me to go there. I was thinking nothing's going to happen here. There's too many people. So that's when the surprise came. I started hearing some hoot calls down in the mountain coming down our way. So right away, because I've heard that before, I said, wow, that's a Sasquatch coming. But most people didn't notice anything, just kept doing their thing, talking. So after a while, we heard a very loud, long howl right next to the campground. And everybody went silent, and the little girl in the next campsite, she asked her dad, what is that, Dad? And he said, maybe a Sasquatch. And the little girl said, oh no, go away. So then the Sasquatch replied with a long, loud complaint, full of emotion, that you could feel his sadness, basically, about us humans invading their woods and not even allowing them to walk by. So that's when everybody ran into their campers and locked their doors and turned off their lights, and within a minute, it was dead quiet. And Sasquatch kept walking through camp, calling. And a minute later, I heard footsteps right next to my camp in the woods. And there was Camus. He was smiling. And he told me, you see, we can help you in ways you don't even expect. And he told me that they will keep coming as they have promised to meet us. But there are still very few humans ready to meet them. And that made me realize that out of those people, maybe 150 people there in that campground, I wonder how many or if any will ever go and report this. Most people will probably, that cognitive dissonance, try to convince themselves nothing happened, or it was a bear or someone, and they don't want to fall into a ridicule or have to revise all their understanding. So I have that feeling that out of all those people, might be none that will report it. So that shows that sightings are much more common that probably we hear of, and encounters of all kinds. Sometimes it's a telepathic encounter, or all kind of signs they leave for us. But first of all, they're not all reported. And like myself, I tried to report one of my Sasquatch sightings on a couple researchers' sites. But as soon as I mentioned, I felt a strong psychic energy. They never published it. So that's to help us understand how great is this gathering of people who are understanding these phenomena. And many our experiencers here. And there's no better teachers about Sasquatch than the Sasquatch themselves. So, just to finish this part, when they asked me to start writing the first book, actually I didn't know it was a book. They asked me to share this experience. Since I have a large group on Facebook, I started to share the first chapters there as posts without knowing. I was really hesitating because when I came out of it, I said, no one's going to believe me. Everybody's going to think I'm making this up. But I don't have much of a reputation to protect. I don't have any degrees. I don't have not even a credit card. So I said, well, might as well share what I've learned. And so I wrote the first 6 chapters in June 2015. And by then already there was a great audience. There was a large audience that were giving some very fantastic feedback. People asking if they could share it on their website or... So that gave me a good encouragement to carry on. That summer I was off the grid, so I didn't write, but the following fall, around September, I wrote chapter 7 because they were still talking to me. I would go in a new place, they would call from the mountain. And so when I wrote chapter 7, Kelly and Kiwani on the September 28th of that fourth lunar eclipse of the tetrad, which was considered as a very special cosmic day. They did a radio show, which is on YouTube, an interview, that when they said that the Sasquatch told them they would find a very important message from them around that date. So right after their interview, Kelly went online and she found my chapter 7, and we connected on that day. And when I heard of Kiwani, and I'd never heard of his work or found anything about him yet, I say, wow, I said that. So I'm not so crazy, finally. You know, there's other people who have known of those things and shared those teachings around. So it was a great encouragement, and I kept writing, and they right away offered to publish the first book. So within like a few months, I went from thinking no one would relate to having an international family connection, online connection of people who share these experiences and this knowledge, and to having a first book published and now a second one. And I sure didn't expect that, nor to be standing here today. So all of this is from their guidance. Okay, so what's happening with this? Well, it's on, huh? It's on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, that's kind of right. Okay. So, what made the big shift in my consciousness about Sasquatch? It's actually them who taught me that they are interdimensional. So then right away, all the ape hunters and monster and even primitive Neanderthal theories are gone. because they told us they were brought and planted here by the star people, as we have, but long before us. And they have shown over and over and over all the signs of their psychic power and their interdimensional understanding. So this is to me the best information source, to talk right straight with them. So I'll show you here just a short slideshow. Of course, they told me that, well, it's not about proving they exist or showing photos or DNA samples. And it's when they show up to us, or sometimes on our photos, it's a gift of teachings. It's for our greater understanding. So we honor those gifts. It's not about us, about showing off or about getting any benefits from those teachings. It's to be shared. And of course, skeptics might not see anything or might debunk systematically everything we try to show them about Sasquatch. So they don't give proof, they give teachings to those who want to learn. So there we go. This is, of course, the cover of my first book, Sasquatch Message to Humanity, book 1. Whoops, what's going on? So in a few short sentences, for those who might not have read the first book, they explain their origin, they explain their spiritual mission as caretakers of this earth, as our elder brothers who are watching over us and teaching us. They also explain that we're not the most intelligent, evolved being, we're not the most ancient, and neither are they. So there are a lot of elder races that were here on this planet before us. And they describe them as the fish people, the ant people, the lizard people, and the bird people. These are like wide classes that evolved over millions of years. As a proof of their existence, there is a lot of unreported or ignored ruins and remains all around this planet. Some things I found, some sophisticated artifacts, some pyramids, and are found underground at the bottom of the oceans, under glaciers, under deserts, in the sand. Most often, mainstream science will discard all these things because it doesn't fit in their limited timeline. But these things stand to prove that we are the lineage of a long line of intelligent species. And these species were brought here just like us by our star elders. That's the eldest beings of this universe and beyond, whose purpose is to maintain the harmony and the spiritual evolution. Well, here, I stole that from Kelly. It shows a connection between the Sasquatch people and our star elders. There again. And there's the DNA. This is the back of my second book. And it shows also to remind us that according to the Sasquatch Genome Project, for instance, a 5-year study that was conducted by Professor Dr. Melba Ketchum in Austin University. The Sasquatch have 99% of our DNA, or we have 99% of theirs, I guess. And there is 1% that contains the gene of a giant lemur, extinct 50 million years ago. Those lemurs were the size of Sasquatch. Yeah. And there is also another part of their DNA that is unidentified. It doesn't look like anything else we ever seen. So sharing 99% of the same genetics, they are our closest related in all of the universe. And that's why they are so close to us, trying to help us, especially at this time where our collective destiny is taking a dangerous path for all the ecosystems and all life on this planet. So they are here to assist us as an elder would do for their little brothers. So here's book 2. We're going. So we're getting to, here's a real Sasquatch.
The one on the left.
Yeah, oh, you're right. Okay, that was just a little fun picture, but Sasquatch is part of the collective consciousness already. In Washington State, 36% of the population believes Sasquatch exists. And 12% have had a contact or know firsthand someone who had a contact. So that is a pretty important proportion of the population. It's not just a marginal story. It's not only a few guys who made it up. It's been around for thousands of years. Here's the real Sasquatch. Well, just another joke, but yeah, I got 130 seconds gene. Now it's just a guy in a monkey suit. Okay, I will go gradually in this slideshow about how to identify Sasquatch activity. There are places people see branches or tree formation piled up in teepee shape and all different shapes that cannot be made naturally. Actually, I invite you, if you walk behind the auditorium, you're going to see a few trees jacked up there. You wonder how they ended up there. But that's it's still very far from us. We got tracks. Well, okay, we won't show you 100 pictures because you must have seen more in that. The tracks is a definite sign. When we see this, is that the one we found? Okay, that's this track we found right down here below behind the pavilion. There's a little trail going through meadows there, and about 10 minutes walk from here we found that big 1-inch deep track with 5 toes, you can see clearly. These are a gift they give us because once you know they exist, you don't need proof. But if they give you a track, it means they love you. It means they give you a confirmation, like to help you on your walk. I've seen tracks in the most unlikely places. Once on my porch in the city in fresh snow, a 16-inch. And very often we can see 1 track or 2 or a few, and that's it. So where are they gone? Right there, there's a teaching about interdimensionality. They can leave tracks without having to fully materialize and stay in this plane. So same track, there's going to be a few more here. Same one. That's another one in Deer Park. A few more. Some, of course, are not all as clear, but once you get to see a few, you know they're out there. You can see them also in snow. This is when last winter, Kelly and I went to just on this, above the cemetery on the way here. That's actually where they saw Camus the day after I wrote to her that he told me he was going to go visit them. That's also close to where Lee from Australia saw Camus last year. And Garrett told me this morning that Camus came to him and he channeled some information. So far, it's been about 3,000 people who told me they have had interaction with Camus, among all the many Sasquatch elders. Because it's made its spiritual mission to create the bridge between humans and Sasquatch people. So these were very large tracks, 6 foot stride, and there were many trails on that mountain that day, and some places tracks would turn into cougar or coyote, and a little further turn back into Sasquatch. Another teaching, that means they can shapeshift, and they gave us proof of it. So some of those trails. Okay, but you can find very ancient tracks too. This one is on the Navajo res, just outside of Tuba City, on the outskirts of town. They told me, you want to see a Sasquatch track? We'll show you one. And this is one of half a dozen I saw in that area this year. Those stones are older than dinosaurs, or at least as old, because they hold a lot of dinosaur fossils. So that means clearly that Sasquatch was there in the time of the dinosaurs. That's just close from that same track you just saw. It's a whole complete petrified skeleton of pterodactyl. You can see the legs on this side, it's upside down, the wings here, and the head. That's one of the leg bones. That's the head. So there's a lot of amazing fossils all over the Painted Desert where I was this winter and spring. I've seen full skulls of T-Rex, and some printed in cliffs, and all kind of piles and piles of dinosaur bones. And there we find Sasquatch tracks. So that's pretty much scientific evidence. Another one around there. That's a dinosaur track close to it, that I found. More. And that's, I didn't know Kewaunee yesterday had pictures of this site, Paluxy River in Texas, where when they dried the riverbed, they found human tracks next to dinosaur tracks. But except big human tracks. So again, that's another proof that the Sasquatch were there hundreds of million years ago. And even in one place, there we see a human foot next to a dinosaur. And even in one place, the dinosaur stepped over the human track. So this shows they were there at the same time. Of course, the site was unfortunately destroyed, declared a hoax, and there's a couple samples that were saved. That's what mainstream science does when they can't explain it away. There's bigger tracks. This one is from Michael Tellinger in South Africa. Just an example that they are found. This is in Russia. Okay, apart from tracks and fossils, we can find scat. Yeah. That was at Susan's place last year in the Deer Park, where there was a lot of Sasquatch activities in those woods. You're gonna see other pictures. And on top of thick grass, there was this ball of poop, and next to it, a ball of black dirt. And there were plum pits, obviously plum pits in it, but the plums had been off the trees for 2 months. So if you have an explanation, please let me know. I think it has to do with interdimensional time travel, or maybe they stash plums, but that would be second. The same wood, we found a deer carcass that was all cleaned up and the skin neatly rolled on the side. So coyotes and wolves don't do that. It has to be intelligent beings with hands. Okay, next level. Last year when we came here just a couple of days before the conference, we walked to the auditorium and sat on the stage where we were going to do the opening ceremony. And right there next to me there was this big piece of hair, roughly braided with a knot in the middle. And it's coarser than human hair. It's long hair, it's not fur. Under microscope, fur has scales, but hair doesn't. And so it's almost like body hair, who can see. It's coarser than our hair, and it's shiny. So this was a gift from Camus, and that he asked me to share with a dozen people who have carried it since. Oops. Okay. What happened? Okay, there we go. So this is a close-up of this, the first time we picked it. Another better close-up. You can see it's coarser than human hair, but it's nothing like, for instance, horse hair. It's in between. In the light, you can see it's shiny, it reflects sunlight. That's our TP here. Again, okay. This one is kind of hard to see, but I wish we would. This was on the east rim of Grand Canyon this spring, and a place where it's a very, very wild, large wilderness, remote. I spent 3 days there without seeing or hearing even a car. And there are some amazing things there. Among other things, there's some very big pyramid complex. One of the main complex, I would say, has like a mile long, with all kinds of pyramids of different geometrical shapes. And when you stand there, you look all around in every direction you see other pyramids. Those pyramids are not human-made. They were here before us. And that's why the Hopis, for instance, who still live there, they have had many stories and interaction with beings they call either lizard people or ant people, and that live in the underworld. At this time, there has been so many underground tunnels, passages, caves, constructions, and buildings, pyramids that were found underground all over the world. It's an overwhelming amount of evidence that there were and there are still underground civilizations. Why mainstream science won't allow us to know about this, we can question the purpose. Oh, that's a close-up. Again, it's not very clearly. It's one of my best photos I took, but it's still shady, so that's where the photo was taken. Okay, we can talk about a phenomenon that is called apophenia, which consists of seeing known patterns in random forms. And more precisely, we can talk about Pareidolia, which is like a natural reflex of seeing faces in random forms, whether trees or clouds or rocks, water. So a lot of those, there's a good amount of those photos shared on Facebook, for instance, that takes a bit of imagination to figure out or to see what the other person sees in it. So that can be sometimes a little unconvincing. So, like, for this photo, for instance, is one example where if I look deep into it, I see three faces, but they're not so well defined. If I apply a little filter on it, you can see eyes and things. But it's like, maybe it's just for me, because it's not really convincing. Many people will not see anything, just three dark spots. So, what happened is the Sasquatch, they told me early that they don't really like to be taken, to have their pictures taken. Depending very much on the intention and the use of the pictures. Some people will try to get rich and famous by capturing a picture, which is not what they're into. They also don't want to have their pictures misused or shared in wrong circles where people have fear and hatred, and because they can feel all those energies when we look at their pictures or even their tracks. So for me, it just basically started appearing on some photos. And it's never when I plan or choose or decide, it's their timing. So I'm going to show a few of the ones I found. This was in Deer Park behind Susan's place, walking with the dog Buddha. I don't know if you can see very well. There's like, if I'll zoom in again. Whoops, no. Anyway, I'll just point. Right in the center, there's like a face where we can see eyes, mouth, cheeks. And, well, is that a tree, a shadow? Your guess, but let's move on. It's okay. I thought it would show better because on my screen I see it clearly, but I guess we'll go for the best ones. There's another shot of it. It looks like a face. It's pretty easy to see a face there. This was 1 week before the conference when we came here last year, Kelly and I. And we felt their presence, and she took a random selfie there. And if you look in the corner behind us, there's our elder. We see the eyes and the nose. And maybe I can enlarge a bit here. Oh no, that's not my computer. Okay, but that was a nice surprise we didn't expect. And I think it's the first time for me that I ever showed up on a photo. I applied a few different filters to bring out the forms. Okay, this was the opening ceremony last year. When Kelly took this photo, we were just starting. So you can see there's a lot of orbs in the photo that just appeared. And in that lower left corner, there's this little man. It's the only photos he appeared on. You can see this was enhanced. The little man is really clearly defined. It's somewhat, I mean, it's an elemental elder, because they explained to me after what was this little man. It's one of my guides who decided to show up there. We got a close-up and a bigger close-up, which is kind of pixelized there. Okay, and this was at the auditorium last year, at the conference. Check this post. We're gonna go in. These photos were enlarged and enhanced by Michelle Brown. There's a Sasquatch standing right behind me there. And actually another head coming out from behind the tree. You enlarge, you lose the quality of the details, but you see the shape is always there. And if you could see clearly, there's face, there's 2 arms, there's 2 legs. Another shot. Oh, that's too pixelized. That there's definitely a being standing between those 2 trees with a sagittal crest, nose, eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs, and looking my way. So I kind of know who it is. And I went back there this spring and I sat at the same angle and tried to see if it was something between those 2 trees. But no, there's nothing between those 2 trees. So that was definitely a Sasquatch elder visiting during the conference last year. So here we come with another photo taken behind Susan's place. She points at something there. I don't know if you can see from distance, but there's a hazy shape of a being standing there with with a Sasquatch shape and 2 arms. I'll move in a little close up. It's like hazy, so it's not fully materialized, but you definitely see there's something there, and it has the shape of a Sasquatch. Close up, and if you look deeper into it, you can see a face. It's hard to show with this light and everything. I applied a few filters, and this is another photo that same day, which I will enlarge. And on each side of Susan there, in front of her, there's 2 shadows, and we see clearly 2 faces, arms and legs. Try to... One is there and one is there. Let's see if I can make it better. No. Well, that's how well I can show it here. This is Buddha. And on the far to your left, there's another furry friend there. And when we zoom in, you see the dog and that being. And we zoom in again. You see a face with 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, 2 hands with fingers. I know it's kind of hard maybe to show, but in hands.
The button at the top that says zoom, you have to hit that.
Oh, that's too, okay. Well, we see a hand there on that side of the tree, another hand up there, and the face. Which is kind of hard to see something in nature that looks so much like a Sasquatch and is not. Oops, how do I get back to... Okay. All right. So... I think this was going to be a video, but it's not playing. Of pictures I took from the video, where I took a few second clip of the dog walking, and he was like looking around and feeling something, but not seeing. And oh, Mike is. You're on screen.
I need you to email me those photos so that we can put them directly into the video.
Oh, okay.
Because they're kind of washed out.
Yeah, I know, because it's daytime when there's all those lights on. So finally, that day when I felt we were not alone, and I took a short clip, but the dog was kind of feeling something, and when I looked, there was right behind him, there was a Sasquatch standing there, a female with a baby on her back, watching the dog. It's like she came to show the dog to the baby, and they were like just following the dog with. So it's there will be a few shots. I don't think you can see much, but there's a very clear shape of two Sasquatch behind there. And I got some enhanced one where you should see a little better. There. Okay, let's zoom a little bit. Oops. I don't know if you see the face there. She was the local elder of that clan, a very well respected elder who was the keeper of this place. Yep. How do I get back to? Okay. Oh, already? So it's already done. Oh, gee. Again. Well, okay. I guess we're out of time. We started half an hour late. So I just can't move on with those pictures anyway. Oh, okay. Do I have 5 minutes? Okay. So we got here a few more of these pictures from this video with the filters, so you can see more clearly always this being behind these beings. So I'll go quite fast here because we got more than we can show. Well, I think we'll skip the video. Yeah, 2 of them. This is one of Susan's photo that I borrowed. Again, we're gonna have to zoom in. We don't have time really. So let's go on. That's well, these photos are in my second books anyway. Some of this one. I applied filters sometimes so we can see more but the same shapes stay all the time. This being as we really don't see. This one had 4 arms, so not a Sasquatch. I took this picture, and seconds later I took this one, same spot. And when you zoom in to the left, you see those beings. I don't know. I'm not even sure what they are. One looks like a Sasquatch, but maybe. First picture I took of my van, Camus appeared. There's a long story about it, but we don't have time now. Right on the passenger seat, so it was a nice start of the journey. Yeah. Oh, this is one of an albino tree. There's about 10 of them in the world. And we went there in the redwoods this winter and offered some prayer ties. And walking with my friend Patrice, who lives on there. And taking random pictures, all kind of beings started showing up on the photos. If you look on the top left corner there's a face looking at her. And it's not quite, this could be, there are some of those beings I could not put a name on. They are interdimensional beings. It could be of the Sasquatch family, this one, but not all are. It's kind of, they showed up this day kind of to broaden the spectrum of connection with those beings. That it's not only the Sasquatch, but there's the elementals and all those other beings. So, okay, I'll go pretty fast. This kind of, I don't know if it's a leprechaun or whatever, gnome or something, pointed ears, showed up on a photo. This one is another being I could not name. If we zoom in there, we see 2 5-fingered hands, and it's got horns, long nose and mouth. Okay, this one took a random picture of the creek, and in that corner there, I zoomed in to find a very clear face. This face has pointed ears and a little muzzles. So it's not a Sasquatch. I don't know if it has anything to do with Dogman but this is another of those interdimensional beings that live with us on this planet. Okay, we're almost done. There we go. That was to advertise this conference. So that's about it. I guess we won't have time to go into the third part because we're half an hour late. But I encourage you to buy my book while you're here or later online, where we go much deeper into details and explanations there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Bo. And I'm speaking next. We'll take a break.